And now let's proceed with the next sessions with a topic Beyond the Balance Sheet, Reinventing Finance Leadership in Indonesia's New Economy. And please allow me to invite our panelists for the sessions. For the first, we would like to invite Bapak Andi Saputra as the Chief Financial Officer, Indonesia and Philippines, OCS Group Indonesia. And for the next, we would like to invite Mr. Devesh Goyal as the Chief Financial Officer, Kimberly Softex Indonesia. The last but not the least, we would like to invite Mr. Namit Kamra as the Corporate CFO, PT Indorama, Polychem Indonesia, the Country Corporate Banking, Treasury, and Insurance Lead. So, gentlemen, are you ready? Please be seated. So, Bapak Eric, stage once again is yours.
So, thank you very much. And unfortunately, you have to see me here again for another 30, 40 minutes if I'm still here. But we also have another exciting topic, right? So basically in here, we have 3 distinguished CFOs from different areas. So facility management, KC Softex, we've known as well, and then also Indorama. So basically we've seen before, in the past, we are saying, when we talk about finance, CFO, it's just basically about numbers, numbers, and numbers. But we are seeing there has been growth, right? The role itself has been a lot more strategic. So we've seen, and then with the addition of AI and all of this transformation that's actually happening, the role of finance has continued to evolve, and it's actually just beyond finance, beyond numbers. So I think in here, and we'd like to start as well. So then how have you seen, just very briefly as well, before we go into deeper as well, each one of you share a little bit, how has your role evolved in the past couple of years seeing all of this? Maybe we start with Pak Andi and then we can go Devesh and Namit. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Eric. So I think before I share about nowadays the role of the CFO nowadays in the era of AI, the disruption of technology, I think just recently back to last week that one of my team in finance controller come to me, bring the new dashboard as well as the information using the cloud AI. With no background of the coding, with no background of the IT, but in less than 1 day, he can build like a comprehensive dashboard, not only the visualization, but also including the commentary, the insight, as well as the tracking to provide the business and then the CEO related the financial information. So with this situation, I believe that nowadays to become or to lead the finance is not simple like guarding the financial performance, to become the more architect of enterprise value. So means that to become the architect of enterprise value, the CFO or the finance need to combine about the 3 forms. The number 1 is about the financial intelligence to protect the values. And the number 2 is about the artificial intelligence to accelerate the value. And the last one is emotional intelligence to multiply the values. I have a quote from the Daniel Goldman when he was mentioned, the distinction between the great organization and then the common organization is not about the technology, it's not about the strategy, it's not about the process. It doesn't mean that this is not important, but I do also agree with him. It become number 2, number 3, and number 4. But the most important thing is the quality of human relationship. So means that nowadays it can be replaced with AI, but how we build the quality of relationship among the division, among the human, it becomes more important on today's situation. And the CFO become the architect to make this relationship become more valuable. So this is from my view, Pak Eric.
Thank you, Pandi. And of course, later on, we'll deep a little bit into like digital transformation that you've done. But before, maybe Devesh first as well.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And as I was thinking about this, you mentioned that previously our job was into data, reporting. I think we were more a bean counter kind of. That was when I started my career. over last 5-7 years, I think many of these conferences I attended, it was all about business partnering, how can finance play a role of strategist. But today, when I see the role is changing to a scenario planning, and the way I think about it, previously we used to forecast weather, now we are forced to forecast storm. And there is somebody in Truth Social keep on generating that forecast on a daily basis, unfortunately. So I think that's the way the role is changing from a bean counter, a data provider, to a business partner, to now strongly getting into a scenario planning. And what is changing? Why there is a need of so much of scenario planning? I think if you look at from external point of view, obviously a lot of geopolitical, we all know about tariff, we all know about Forex impact. Also internally from Indonesia point of view, I think in last 6 months, the amount of policy changes we have seen, I think I have not seen, I've been here for 3.5-4 years, but the amount of policy changes which are there is significant. And from an internal point of view, as Pandi was mentioning, digital transformation and AI is definitely, we have to keep mentioning to be relevant. So I'll also use that word for sure. But it is slowly and steadily coming into picture. So all this thing is really making sure that we keep on, changing the role. And in the end, I would say, I think the role is changing from providing answer to asking right question. I think it's very, very important that when you're doing scenario planning, you are asking right question. I think getting answer is important, but getting answer to right question is even more important. So that's the way I see the role playing.
Thank you, Devesh. Mr. Namit?
Yeah, good morning, Salamat Pagi, Samua. So to answer your question, Eric, the main change what I am seeing globally and in Indonesia is earlier the CFO's role or the finance executive role used to be more of a accountant or a gatekeeper, but now it is more towards a holistic approach where we are controlling the whole of the commercial side of operations. So earlier it used to be a simple, okay, we want to adopt a digital drive, we want to be a part of a digitalization drive. But now it is more of the quality of the data we are generating, the wholesomeness of the controls we are keeping, what kind of unusual transactions we are able to pick up correctly and pick up timely also. In general, there is a global drive on, everyone is talking about AI, everyone is talking about digital transformations, but it doesn't stop there. It has a second layer to it where a feasible digital transformation is what we should be talking about. So now people in general, big MNCs have started talking about the quality of the data, the quality of the people, the learning what people are engaging in, what kind of qualitative learning they are getting into this whole digital and the whole AI, ML kind of atmosphere we are currently in. So the role of a CFO has changed a lot. I would not say it's changing at a very accelerated rate, but yes, it's evolving.
Thank you. So before going to the digital, maybe come back a little bit with you, Devesh, right? So Kimberly Clark Indonesian operations came through acquisition. So which means that your team has made a lot of changes to make this merger successful. And so what financial and non-financial discipline that you actually need to enforce? So during this transition.
Yeah. No, I think merger acquisition is like happening very, very rapidly. And, if I talk about Kimberly Clark at a global level, currently we are going with one big demerger and one, big merger. And specifically in Indonesia, I think I've been part of one very big acquisition. And, one of the quote I kind of recently read about the merger, merger and integration. I think merger is like wedding. It's a 2-day party, somebody take decision. And integration is like marriage. So the real life start after the wedding party is over. And this is my photo before merger, and this is the way I am after integration. So I think that's a kind of change. But jokes apart, I think, what are the big learning which are there? I think both from a financial and non-financial. I think financial point of view, what is very, very important is that you stay true to the integration case. So there is some team who has decided that why this merger makes sense. as the integrator who is getting handed over that, I think you should be very clear what are those business cases, and make sure that on a month-on-month, quarter-on-quarter, year-on-year, you are kind of following on that. So that becomes very, very kind of important. I know the topic of this session is beyond balance sheet, but in merger, you cannot go to beyond balance sheet because that's the place where all the pain comes. And when you are acquiring a company, making sure the balance sheet is right, you're cleaning up it properly, and it doesn't create future issue is going to be very, very important. I think another area on non-financial side we kind of picked up. And number one, in my view, if I had to just choose one, is getting the right talent. Making sure that you have the right talent who can be part of the journey, who believe in the vision you're doing, and have the right capability. Right capability may not to do the job, but right capability to learn, to progress, and kind of be part of the journey. That's the second thing. And one of the another important non-financial piece, which I found very, very important, having led this integration for almost 3 years, is making sure you keep the entire board true to strategy. Many times you say that this is the reason I did merger integration, but when you start executing it, you are in a totally different path. If it is required, it is required, but it has to be clearly aligned versus afterthought kind of thing. So I think these are the few learnings which I had. The unfortunate reality of marriage and integration is that you are left with few hairs, but that's what you have to live with. So.
Thank you, Devesh. So coming back to Pa Andi, right? So you led finance across both Indonesia and then also Philippines, and then you've actually some of the topics that you're looking at as well is actually beyond balance sheet, like sustainability. So how do you actually manage these two countries? And then also, how do you embed that sustainability into your day-to-day operations from the financials?
Yeah, it always started with the business objective. So I think the mindset for the finance leader as well as the team, the first number one is not only about the transforming the finance organization or safeguarding or like a compliance, but the most important thing about the mindset is how to enable the business win. So it means that at the end, whatever the finance initiative, the strategic, as well as the action plan is not only like providing a report, safeguarding the company, providing the internal control and governance, it's still required, but the most important thing is how the business win means that the sustainable, profitable growth is achieved. So I think this is the number one that every finance leader as well as the team need also to get the amplification about this mindset. Second one is about the organization capital. Whether I lead in Indonesia and Philippines, at the end, to build the organization is more ready, or what I call it the organization capital is very important because organization is determine our ability to adapt. So this is, I think, related to the topic beyond the balance sheet. Nowadays, the biggest challenge in the finance community is how we measure the intangible asset. Because at the end, if we measure like a lagging indicator, profitability, equity, the ROI is something that already happened. So it means that how finance can react and also providing the business in terms of the early warning sign. So it's become important in terms of the culture, in terms of the teamwork, collaboration, it become more important nowadays because everything regarding the lagging, the technicality, it can be subcon to the AI. But to make everyone aligned, to make every division aligned, it requires something different that finance can support to measure it. It's quite difficult to find a measurement about the intangible, but it nowadays become very important. So number one is about organization capital. And the second one is the human capital. Of course, after we know already the objective of the organization, how we protect the company, how we can support the business, whether our people is already there or not. So the human capital determines our ability to respond. So we need to prepare whether our team in finance is already there. If not, what will be the response for us? Whether we buying the talent, whether we develop, or if we develop, how long it will take to develop the people, whether we have the luxury time or not. And then the third part is about the information capital. information capital determines our ability to anticipate. So means that not only about the invest of the technology, but how the quality of the data, how the process is already support the end-to-end of the business, as well as the technology is also fit to create the competitive advantage. So means that to lead both organization, Indonesia and Philippines, I use the 4 framework. The first one is about the mindset, about the objective that to enable the business win. And then the number 2 is about the organization capital. And then the number 3 is about the human capital. And then the last one is about information capital. With this 4 framework, I use also to helping the business to create competitive advantage in OCS, like in the facility management, what we call it the regenerative facility management, which is the regenerative facility management focus under the 4 elements that cannot separate it, under the people, community, environment, people, community, environment, and also the workplace. So not only focusing, maintaining the building on the workplace, but also how to develop the community and also the environment as well at the same time. So I think this is, in summary, how we organization, even though different country, different culture, but still can be managed with the 4 framework.
Thank you. So I think you mentioned a little bit about technology. What technology and how was the implementation? What is actually the challenges? You mentioned integrating the information and the people as well. How has that journey been for you implementing the technology to support your whole processes?
Yeah, back again about the mindset. But before we implement anything about the technology, we focus first is about the data itself, the structure of the data, the customer master data, the vendor master data, the chart of account. It should become a standard across the country, across the business unit. The number 2 is also the robust business process. The order to cash, procure to pay, the record to report, it also to become like a standard. So means that if these 2, the data as well as the business process is already implemented, whatever the system, whatever the technology, whatever the ERP that we want to implement, it can be more easier for us. If not, the opposite way will happen. So means that the structure of the data, the quality of the process as well as the key finance processes need to be in place at the first time.
Okay, thank you. And Namit, you mentioned briefly before about AI. And I think in the past you've talked about AI, machine learning, liquidity forecasting, and treasury risk model. So how has, maybe share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of years back, we had this very big ERP transformation from our legacy system to a much more developed system. Right now, we are working on. So our experience with the digital drive happening in our group and in general overall in Indonesia is it's happening at a very good pace. And in terms of what we used to do earlier when we were working on the legacy systems, it was more onto getting systems better, getting systems more controlled. But now the system is changing into guardianship rather than controlling only. Like as CFOs, we always think about how we can control the finances, right? But it has moved to a second layer now. It is more of a guardianship kind of a control what we are doing, not simply a financial control. So talking about AI and specifically on the digital drives happening, earlier it used to be, okay, how can we plan our cash flow cycle? How can we forecast our cash flows? But now the thought has changed towards how can we forecast our cash flows more proactively. Rather than firefighting, we are moving into a proactive kind of a controlling. When I say firefighting changing into a proactive behavior, I mean now whenever like we are forecasting our cash flow cycles, cash conversion cycles, working capital cycles, payables, receivables, now the focus is more on the quality of the data, the quality of the control. For example, when we plan for our, let's say, what would be the cash flow appearing in next 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, it's not simply getting a cash flow balance or a daily cash balance for the company. It's now more focusing on what kind of abnormalities will be there in the cash flows. it might be a seasonal abnormality, it might be a volatility on account of global things happening, global updates happening. It can be a supply chain issue which is happening. For example, a very simple example in terms of Indonesia, whenever there is a Eid al-Fitr festival, there is always a cash flow imbalance which happens. So rather than just simply calculating your cash flows, the system gives a prompt that, okay, during this period, during this month, there will be a volatility which is forecasted. So you can plan much before. Other than that, other than cash flows, working capital is something which most of the newer AI tools, most of the new softwares are working very, very strongly upon. Working capital goes both in terms of managing your supply chain plannings, managing your risk on account of counterparties, risk on account of customers. AI is also helping now in terms of proactively alarming us in terms of any kind of red flags are there for any of the counterparties. So these are few areas where we are seeing AI appearing purely as a winner and helping all of us.
So before, I think the same question later on as well. So how do you decide which technology, which processes that you will invest? So how do you look at, because we know that now with the role as a CFO is changing beyond finance as well. A lot of data, a lot of then technology is one of the key supporters, I can say as well. So how do you make that the decision?
So the journey of AI implementation, ERP transformation has evolved a lot. So like 3 to 5 years back, we were talking about, okay, we need to develop our systems. We need to make our systems more robust. We need to make our systems more appropriate to the changing times. Post that, now we are talking about how can we make our systems more qualitative? How can we make our systems better? What more we can add upon? So now the thoughts are more on how can different functions within an entity can integrate in itself. Like it's not only about finance, it's more onto supply chain, it's more onto your sales mix, it's more onto your customer behavior, your suppliers' behavior, it's more onto your production facilities, it's more onto logistics. So now, in terms of moving into a more holistic, a more wholesome kind of integrated function in AI. So how do we decide on which investments to make in AI and where to invest, what to pick up, what to leave? It purely depends on the need basis of the organization. It is, of course, industry specific, but I would say a simple answer would be how the service provider can integrate within our system. So when we talk about big, complex manufacturing facilities in terms of like where I'm associated with, our main goal is always, okay, ROI is very important. We can't forget the ROI part of it. But most importantly, the new system, the new functionality should work integratedly within the existing system. So that is one core area what we follow. Of course, ROI is important. We all are finance professionals here. We can't leave that behind. So that is one criteria, of course. And of course, the future, where does the future lies ahead? So that's more important as well. So if the system is strong, it proves the ROI is strong, then of course it calls for to be picked up.
Thank you. So maybe Devesh to you as well, similar, but maybe if you can add as well, what do you still actually need to be basically, in a way, right now, operating beyond finance?
I think, and especially from a technology point of view, and when I was hearing Namit, I was feeling a little inferior because we are very, very far from AI journey. I'm still on the fence from a point of view of how much really we need to invest in AI, how much we really, AI can benefit. And that definitely one of the notes I'm taking, I'll connect with kind of Namit on how he has been doing it. From our point of view, I would say we are a little, step at one level lower in focusing more on automation, and many times automation is sold as AI, but I have to be true to ourselves, saying that what we are really focusing on, how do we look at all the activities we are doing manual and do automation. And automation could be through RPA, through simple power automate and all those kind of areas. So it's still, I would say a little silo. I think we are also doing a similar transition as Namit was mentioning. So we'll be moving from our legacy ERP, Oracle-based ERP to SAP in coming year. And that's where I think the more and more activity will be kind of implementing. But really looking forward to learn more about AI and see if it I can get into the fence and not stay on the sidelines.
Pak Andi, maybe just a quick one before after that I'll open it to the audience for some questions. So then similar things as well. So what we'll be focusing on, what we'll be investing on? Technology could be one, but of course other areas as well in terms of becoming more beyond finance.
As nowadays that the finance leader need to become the architect of enterprise value means that I would recommend that we more invest to the technology that not creating more value to the customer. So means that the infrastructure, of course, it's still mandatory important, like ERP, the HR system, and the other system that's supporting internally. But in the today's situation, how the technology can supportive the customer better. So means that the focus area in terms of the technology investment, for me, I would recommend about the technology that can more bring the value to the customer. As well as the transformation itself. Means that beside the technology, I think the underrated discussion between us is about the human capability that more relevant nowadays. We can talk more about the technology initiative, the AI and so on and so forth. But at the end, the people behind to deliver and also to optimize the technology objective that previously designed, it become more important. So means that beside the technology that we invest to more creating the more value to the customer, secondly is about more investing to the people capability or the human capability.
Thank you. Maybe we open for one or two questions from the audience, if there's any.
Hi, Padeas.
It's payback time, yeah?
I have to ask you questions now. You shared before that Kimberly Clark is one of the company that has gone through many mergers, right? Indonesia and also in Indonesia, also globally. You mentioned something, one of the challenges as a finance officer is that retaining talent. So I would like, if you don't mind sharing with us the challenges, but also the blessings when it comes to talent acquisition, talent retention, but also talent integration when you go through mergers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Buyanti. I think, as I said, this is one of the biggest challenge, through a merger process. And from my experience, I think the first step is to clearly identify what is the task ahead of you. Is the task, very financial? You have to clean balance sheet. You have to change the system. Is it more focused on synergy, driving synergy, or it is about making sure that you have to ensure that strategy adherence is the most important piece. In our case, because it was moving from a local company to MNC, I think the focus more was making sure system integration, reporting and all. Once we identified this is what the key focus for finance for next 2-3 years, I think we started mapping the resources we had on both the companies, saying that this individual fits more here. That's what his or her experience, fit in there. Basis that we started selecting who is the right person to do that. I think what we also did is, or rather a step before was designing the structure. So before we, put the talent to a structure, making sure the structure we have, is it fitting? Because we had a huge growth plan. We wanted to set up a big manufacturing facility. At the same time, drive a lot of cost reduction. So a supply chain finance function was very important. And in the earlier organization, that function didn't exist. It was done by somebody, a very junior. So we created that function. We created the structure. And once we created the structure, we started fitting, the team both through inbuilt in-house team and also, acquiring team from outside depending on the requirement. And you talked about talent acquisition. Obviously, the first thing which kind of attract is the brand name. So make sure that you are putting your brand, you are putting your credentials in front, you're putting your what are the plans you have for organization in future. So exciting, when you are saying that we want to grow, strong double digit, we want to be profitable, we want to grow so much. I think that really excite talent. Obviously, you have to pay competitive. And third very interesting thing I found, and which is very, very typical for Indonesia, your office should be next to their home. So I think, now one of the critical question for me, whenever I look at interview is, where do you stay? Because a lot of people leave if they're staying 10, 15 kilometers. So I think the step is deciding what your, the business objective is, making sure you have a right finance structure to support it, putting the talent, acquiring the right talent. And the next step definitely is making sure that on the way you're training the gaps, because nobody is ready for everything. Your technology is changing, your business is kind of evolving. And the last and very important but unfortunate part is, if you realize there are gaps, we should make changes quickly, because it's good for organization, is good for the individual, that if things are not working out, you part ways amicably, make sure. But that should only happen if you made, all the kind of effort. So that's the way, Buyanti, I kind of, we approach, and it's not theory. I think I've kind of lived through those stages. So thank you for your questions.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I think we've seen that as a CFO, what you are doing is not just finance, it's not just numbers. Mention that the number has to be right, the number has to be solid, because that's the core function. But at the same time, there are so many different angles that we look at. You mentioned talent has been highlighted quite a few times as well. Technology, operation, supply chain. So everything is now has been like this as well. So before we close, maybe going through, starting from Pak Andi as well. So then, what is like your closing remarks, or what is actually that you believe that as a CFO that you need to do, or everyone needs to do, to basically become more relevant, more effective in this basically a bit more beyond finance role?
I emphasize how important about the emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence means how we understand us as an individual as well as the organization, and then understand the others as well as the other division, means the objective. Because in every organization, everyone has their own KPIs, their own objective. While the ultimate goal is to create the business win, means that the sustainable, profitable growth. So I think this is the number one. And then in the today disruption of AI, I think the mandatory question for us that supporting the business is become more important. The number one is we need to support the business team, the CEO, where do we want to invest? The number two is which technology that will creating competitive advantage. And then the number three is how we balance between growth and the resilience. And the last part is about how we build the organization that adapt to change, mean that to become resilience, even beyond the resilience, means that how the organization can anticipate and having the answer, the early warning sign before something not good can happen or something, the disruption can happen. So means that nowadays that the role of the CFO becoming more critical in terms of how to manage the quality of the division, the alignment, the teamwork, as well as to measure the intangible asset. Means that giving us more insight rather than focus with the traditional measurement like profitability, like a cash conversion, because this is like a lagging and already been happen. So it become more relevant for us nowadays.
I think at start of the session, we talked about how the role of finance is evolving. So we said, I think it was providing data before, then moving to strategy, business partner, and currently we talked about scenario planning. But when I look at, say, little future, and the theme is 2045, maybe let's too far, but if I look at next 5 years, I think one of the key role for CFO is how to build our imagination. imagination from what are the things changing, both from a technology point of view, as Pandey was mentioning, from a talent point of view, and get ready. I think those of us who will able to imagine future, preempt future, and get ready for it, in advance, are the ones who are going to be kind of successful. And that's what I challenge myself. It's difficult. I challenge my team to say, how do we start, imagining future and kind of get ready. And second thing, as a very traditional person, I hope, the mentality or the noise around loss is good goes away. I think end of the day, what matters is profit, cash, and also I think there is more talk about cash profit, as Namit was mentioning, ROI, because now I see in finance fraternity, people are very comfortable with huge losses and all, which I find. So these are the two things, driving imagination and getting back to ROI profitability.
Well said, Devesh. So my closing remarks would be, I'll just mention 2 points. So first of all, of course, I would say think beyond numbers. Just don't think about numbers, because there is a huge world outside numbers, outside finance also. So, and secondly, be adaptive, be open for change. The digital drive is happening. It's not happening now. It was there since last almost 5 years. It has already picked up pace. So be adaptive, be open for change. You have to try new things in order to be very relevant. So be open for changing, be open for failures, be open for trying new things. But of course, the journey will be very great. Devesh, you are getting into that journey, so all the best. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Namit. Thank you, Devesh. Thank you, Andi. And thank you as well, I think, from the audience as well. So please give a round of applause to our panelists.